If you would like to have full support from programming expert via Telegram group and group coaching, check the description below. Hi everyone, my name is Giovanna Proença and today we're going to talk about all the exercises you need to be prepared for the problem set 1. If you have any questions, please send here on the comment, alright? And if you would like to have full support from our programming expert, check the description below and become one of our students. So the main idea that we're going to see in here in these exercises will be about conditionals. So let's see the animation about if and else conditions. Python if and else statements help coders control the flow of their programs. An if and else Python statement evaluates whether an expression is true or false. If a condition is true, the if statement executes. Otherwise, the else statement executes. Let's suppose we want to check if a number is greater than 10. The number we want to check is stored in the variable x. We can check if this number is greater than 10 by doing if x operator greater and the number 10. If this condition is true, we're going to print numbers greater than 10 only. Otherwise, if the condition is false, we're going to have our else statement. In the else, we're going to print any condition satisfied. Let's see one example in the code above. Let's suppose that x stores the value 7. The if condition won't be true because 7 is not greater than 10. Then we will skip the if block and go to the else, printing any condition satisfied. Let's do another example, making the variable x holding the value 15. In this case, the if condition will be true because 15 is greater than 10, and we will print numbers greater than 10 only. After that, we won't see the else condition because we already found our right condition. A Python elif statement checks for another condition if all preceding conditions are not met. They appear after a Python if statement and before an else statement. You can use as many elif statements as you want. Now that we've learned elif, let's improve the previous code with an elif statement. Let's add one more condition where we want to check if the number is less than 0. In this case, we would write elif x, the operator less, and the number 0. If this condition is true, we will print negative numbers only. Let's see one example in the code above. Let's suppose that x stores the value -5. The if condition won't be true because -5 is not greater than 10. Then we will skip the if block and go to the elif block. Now we're going to check if this elif condition is true. Since -5 is less than 0, we will print negative numbers only. After that, we won't see the else condition because we already found our right condition. Let's do another example, making the variable x hold the value 5. In this case, the if condition won't be true because 5 is not greater than 10. Then we will skip the if block and go to the elif condition. Again, this elif condition won't be true because 5 is not less than 0. Then we will skip the elif block and go to the else condition. In this else, we're going to print any condition satisfied.
Problem 1. Ask user for 2 integer inputs and print which one of them is the largest. So to ask user for 2 integer inputs, we're going to use the getInt from CS50. So since we are going to use a function from a library that it's not usual in Python, we have to import this function in our code. So we're going to do what? From CS50. Let me zoom in a little. So from CS50, import getInt. And now we're going to ask user for integers. I'm going to say here x equals to getInt. And what I'm going to put inside here is what it's going to appear. This x colon is going to appear in the terminal when we ask the user for an integer. And I'm going to do the same with the other number that we want. Okay? So let's first check what is happening here. So I'm going to do Python problems.py. And you see here we have this x. So I'm going to put here, for example, 5 and 6. Nothing is going to happen, but in here we are storing 5 and 6 in the variables x and y. Okay, let me print here so you can see. So print x. let me do this again. 5, 6. So here we can see the value of x, that is 5. Okay, so this is storing the variables for us. Now we want to know which one of them is the largest. So we're going to do an if and else condition. Okay, so if x greater than y, we're going to print x is greater than y. What is the other condition? Is if y is greater than x, right? So I'm going to put here elif y greater than x, and I'm going to print y is greater than x. And we have one more case where when x and y has the same value. So I'm going to put here as else because it's the only case that has left. And we're going to print x equals y. Okay, so let's check Python problems.py. So first I'm going to put 5, 5, and here we have x equals to y. Now let's do this again. So 5, 6. Now y is greater than x. So by now it's working. Let's check the last one. So 6, 5, and x is greater than y. Okay, so this so far so good. Let's go to the next problem. Now we're going to ask user for 2 integer inputs and print as if they are equal and no otherwise. So this is the same idea as the first problem that we did. Okay. So here, remember, since we're going to ask user for 2 integer inputs, we have to use the function getInt of CS50. I'm going to show you here. So CS50 web, oops, it's not CS50 web, CS50, it's the normal CS50. And we go here to week 6, okay, Python, we go to notes, and we can check the getInt. So we have here how we can ask the user for 2 integers using this function getInt. Okay, so we're going to do this. So first we have to import the getInt function. So from CS50 import getInt. Okay, so now let's ask user for 2 integers. So remember, we're going to use x, we're going to use the getInt function. Okay, and now y, getInt y. And now what are we going to do? We want to print yes if they are equal or no otherwise. So we're going to do a condition here. So if x is equals to y, remember when we are this is something that is important because we normally forget. When we are declaring a variable, we are going to use a single equal, okay? Or just use one time equals. But when we want to check if the condition is right, for example, if x is equals to y, we have to use double equals here, okay? So always remember, when you are declaring a variable, you're going to use one equal. When you are manipulating this variable by checking if they are equal or not, you're going to use double equals. Okay, now you're going to print if x is equals to y, we're going to print yes, and else, because it doesn't matter what is the else case, because the only thing that the problem wants to know if they are equals, we're going to print no. Okay, so let's check if this is working. So Python problems.py, and let's say here 1 and 1, and it's going to print yes. If we put 1 and 2, it's going to print no, and if we change the order, 2 and 1 is going to print no, because the only condition we are checking is if x is equals to y. Okay, now we're going to work with functions, and functions are really interesting because they help you a lot to make your code be very clear and more organized. You can understand pretty well what are the things that you're doing. And we have one important rule in programming that is called don't repeat yourself. So if you're going to do one thing multiple times, create a function. This is going to help you, and you're going to save time, memory of the computer, and also It's going to help you to don't have bugs, okay? So now let's try to do this. Try not, we're going to do this, okay? Now we're going to ask user for 2 integer inputs, and we're going to write a function to return the sum of the 2 given integers values. But if 2 values are the same, return triple of their sum. Print the result. So this is one more complicated problem, but we're going to do this very well, okay? So the first thing we have to do is what? So we want to ask user for 2 integer inputs. So remember, we have to call the CS50 library. So from CS50 import getInt, our getInt function, okay? Now what are we going to do? We're going to ask user for integers. So here x equals to getInt x, y equals to getInt y, okay? And then what are we going to do with this? After asking 2 integers input, we're going to write a function to return the sum of the 2 given integers. So we're going to create a function. We're going to create a function here before, so def check. The name of the function will be checkNums, and I'm going to pass as input the x and the y because we want to return the sum of the 2 given integer values. So since we are asking the user for these integers, we're going to use this as input here, okay? And what are we going to do inside this function? We're going to return the sum of these 2 integers, but if two values are the same, return triple their sum. So it's kind of difficult to understand, but basically we're going to return their sum if x is different than y, but if x is equals to y, we're going to return triple their sum. Okay, so we're going to do an if condition here. So if x is equals to y, we're going to return triple their sum. So we're going to do 3 times x plus y, okay? And what's the else case? In the else case, we're going to return x plus y, okay? But if we do this, let's see, if we do this in here, nothing's going to, so we're going to give the things, but we're not receiving anything. Why? Because we're not calling this function in the main function. So here we're going to call the checkNums function. And how are we going to do this? So we're going to do print, and inside the print we're going to put checkNums. And what are the values of checkNums? It's this x and y here, so we have to pass x and y as variable, okay? So let's see what happens. I'm gonna put a breakpoint in here in print, and we're going to check what's happening. So debug 50 problems.py. So x, first I'm going to put 5 and y equals to 6. And so here we have 5 and 6, and we're calling the check function here. So if we do a step into, we're going, oops, it's not a step into, I'm sorry. We're going to do 5, 6. We're going to do a step into actually. So here we're going to check, so you see that we have x equals to 5 and y equals to 6. So x and y has the same value? No, right? Because x is 5 and y is 6. So this condition is not satisfied. We go to the else, and then we're going to return the sum of its values, okay? And what if we give as input 5 and 5? We're expecting to receive 10, but since we are returning the triple of their sum, we're going to return 30, okay? So now let's go to the next one. Ask user for 2 integer inputs, write a function to compute return true if one of them is 30 or if their sum is 30. So here it's basically the same idea. Okay, I'm going to erase all. So we're going to ask user for 2 integer inputs. So as we already know, we have to call the CS50 library and import the getInt function. Now we have to ask user for inputs. So remember, x equals to getInt x, y equals to getInt int y, and then we have to create a function to return true if one of them is 30 or their sum is 30. So this function, we're going to check if x is equals to 30, y is equals to 30, or x plus y is equals to 30, okay? So we're going to create a function here. So def check nums. We have to pass the variables. We have to pass two values here, that it's x and y, and we're going to check them. So here we're going to do what? We're going to do if a equals to 30, or b equals to 30, or a plus b equals to 30, we're going to return true, right? The else case, we're going to return false. And here we're going to call the function. And how do we call the function? We're going to print what? Check nums, and what? It's our a and b inputs. It's our x and y. Okay, so x, y. I'm changing the name, but you're going to see that's basically the same. The name that we put in here, it doesn't need to match with the name that we're going to pass in here, because when we call the function, the compiler understands that we're going to receive two inputs. This a and b is just for us to understand what is happening, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to match with this. You're going to check. So clear. Let's put a breakpoint in here. Okay. So debug 50 problems.py. I'm going to pass 15 and 15 because their sum is 30. Okay. So here we have in our x is equal to 15 and our I is equal to 15. Now in this line we're going to call the check nums function. So let's see. When we call the check nums function understand that x and y is the value of a and b. So if we check here, a is equal to 15 and b is equal to 15. So he understands that these are the two inputs. And now we're going to check. So a is equal to 30, no, it's 15. So now let's check. The OR operator, it's going to say what? If one of these three conditions is true, we're going to enter this condition is satisfied. If none of these three conditions is true, this if condition is not satisfied, then we go to the else, okay? So a is not equal to 15, b is equal to 30, no, it's 15. So we have to check the last OR condition. A plus b is equal to 30, yes, because 15 plus 15 is 30, so we're going to enter in this condition, and we're going to return true, and we have true in here. If we do this in more cases, so let's check more cases. If we put here 30 and 1, it's going to return true because x is equal to 30, and here a is equal to 30. Remember that compiler understands. Actually, I'm going to show you again. So we have 30 and 1. So we pass here x equals to 30. We receive this from the user input, and y is equals to 1. So we're passing these two variables for the function, and the function gets these two variables and set a equals to 30 and b equals to 1. So we're going to check a is equal to 30. Yes, so this if condition is satisfied, that's why we return true. Okay, the same thing for Python problems. If we put 1 and 30, it's going to return true because our b here it's 30 and it's true. And if we put a random number, for example 1 and 2, it's going to return false because none of these conditions are satisfied. Okay, let's go to the next. Now let's do problem 13. So ask the user for two integer inputs. Write a program to check if each integer is in the range of 100 and 200 inclusive. So here we're going to do step by step. So the first thing we're going to do is what? Ask the user for two integer inputs. So we have to import the getInt from CS50 library. Import getInt, okay? And we're going to ask user for two integers. So how do we do this? Remember, we use x get int x, okay, y get int. We already saw this in the previous problems, okay. And then after we get these values, let's create our function to check if each integer is in the range of 100 and 200 inclusive. So here let's define our function. So define our function, okay, and we're going to say def of definition, okay. This is a syntax that we have to use in Python, and I'm going to call my function as check num, okay. And as input we're going to pass x and y, okay, that are the values that we're getting from the integer. Now what are we going to do? We have to check if these values, if x is in the range of 100 and 200 inclusive, or y is in the range of 100 and 200 inclusive. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do if x is greater or equals to 100 and x is less than or equals to 100, 200, this is going to be true. Why and because these two conditions has to be true. It has to be in the range of 100 and 200 inclusive. But just x is not enough. We can return true in a second case. So we can use an OR operator here. So it's saying that with each this thing here or this next thing here that we're going to write has to be true. So I'm going to open the parentheses. So or this thing that is inside this parenthesis has to be true, or the thing that we're going to write inside this parenthesis has to be true, okay? So here we're going to do what? So we're checking x, now we're going to check I. So if I is greater or equals to 100 and y is less than or equals to 200, we're going to return true. And if none of these cases return true, we're going to return false, okay? So let's check what happens. And we have to do more than this. We have to call this function in our code. So here we're going to say print check num and x and y, that are the variables that we're creating here, okay? So let's check what happens. I'm going to put a breakpoint in this if, and let's put here debug 50 problems.py, and let's see what happens. So I'm going to say here the first as 101 and y as 8, okay, just random numbers. So in here we're passing x equals to 101 and y equals to 8. So we're going to check this condition. So x is greater or equals to 100. Yes, because our x has value 101. Now to enter in this condition, we have to check if this second condition is true. So x is less than or equals to 200. Yes, because x has value 101. So since this condition is true, these two conditions here inside the parentheses is true, we're going to return true, okay? And let's check one more thing. So let's see here. Let's call debug 50 again, and I'm going to say 1 for x and 199 for y. So here we have x equals to 1 and 199 for y. So here we're going to check the first part of the parenthesis. So x is greater or equals to 100. No, our x has value 1. So since this condition is not true, both conditions here are not true, so this can't be true, okay? So we're going to check the or part, that is about the y. So y has value greater or equal to 100. Yes, because our y has value 199. And we have to see if the second condition is also true. So y is less than or equal to 200. Yes, because it's 199. So since these two conditions that are inside this parenthesis here is true, we're going to return true, okay? and we can do this for multiple examples. Now let's go to the next one. So write a program to check which number is nearest to the value of 100 among two given values, integers. Return 0 if the two numbers are equal. So here we're going to ask user for two values. Okay, so we're going to ask user for two values. So from CS50, import get int. So ask user for two integers. So x is equals to get int, y is equals to get int. Okay, and now we're going to check, we're going to create a function to check which number is the nearest to the value of 100, and we're going to return 0 if their two numbers are equal. So let's define our function. So define function. So here we're going to call this def check get nearest. Okay, we're going to get the nearest value of these two. And how can we do to get the nearest value? We're going to do a difference between 100 and x, and then 100 and y, and we're going to check which of the numbers has the smallest difference from 100, and this will be the nearest. Okay, so if both has returned 0, so if both difference of x minus 100 and y minus 100 are equal, we're going to return 0. That's the only thing. So let's check this. We have a so let's first do this, and then I can check. So we're going to put here, so diff x will be what? Will be x minus 100, okay? And diff y will be what? Will be y minus 100. And then we're going to check. So if diff x is greater than diff y, what is the nearest? We're going to return y, because if the difference of x is greater than the difference of y, it means that y is nearest to 100. And if diff x is less than diff y, what we're going to return? We're going to return x, and we have our else case that we're going to return 0 if both have the same value. Okay, and we're going to call here what? We're going to print get nearest, and we're going to pass as x and y as integer, as input. So let's check what happened here. I'm going to put a breakpoint. So debug 50 problems.py, and let's see what happens here. So let's say 1, and let's say, let me guess, 102. So let's check what happens. So what is the difference of x minus 100? We're going to see that it's minus 99. And what is the difference of y minus, actually let me change here, clear. So let's call this again. I'm going to put 98 and 102, okay, because I want to see the bug that we have. So what is the difference between 98 minus 100? It's minus 2, okay. And what is the difference of 102 minus 100? It's 2. So here we already have a problem, because both values has the same distance from the number 100, but one is negative and the other is positive. This case should return what? We should return 0, but if we check, we're going to return x, and this is not true because both of these numbers have the same distance from 100. So one way to make this problem doesn't happen is we can use the abs function of Python, and the abs function returns the absolute value of the given number. So to solve this issue that we're having here, we can use the abs, and we're going to work with the absolute value. Okay, so let's do this again and we're going to check. So debug 50, I'm going to put 98 and 102. If we check here, what is the difference? Before it was -2, but since we're using the absolute value, now it's 2. And the difference of 102 minus 100, it's 2 also. So now we're going to have what we're expecting to receive as result. So since they're both are the same, this if condition is not satisfied, and neither this else if condition is satisfied. So we're going to return 0. Okay, now let's go to the next problem. Write a program to check if two integers have the same last digit. So how can we do this? This is an interesting thing to do because now we're going to use some tricks from math. Okay, so here we're going to do what first? We're going to ask user for two integer inputs. So from CS50 import get int, and what are we going to do? We're going to ask user for two inputs. So remember, x is equal to get int x, oops, I forget the double quotation marks, y is equal to get int y, and now we're going to create a function that is going to be called last digit, okay, because we want to check the last digit. So def last digit, this is the name that I want to give to my function, and we have as input two values. Okay, and what are we going to do? There is something in mathematics that it's called module. So not module, sorry, it's the remainder. I'm going to show you here. So remainder. So in a division, we always have, when we do a division of two numbers, so for example, when we do 11 divided by 10, we have always as value 1. But what is the remainder of this operation here? It's 1, right? It's because 10 multiplied by 1 is 10, and we have left the value of 1. It's the same thing as if we have here 5, for example. 15 divided by 10 has value 1, and we have as remainder the number 5. Okay, and how can we get the remainder? The percent symbol in Python is called the module operator. It returns the remainder of dividing the left-hand operand by right-hand operand. It's used to get the remainder of a division problem. So so how are we going to get the last digit? The remainder. If you take a look, the division 10 by 15 has value 1, and the remainder is 5. And what is the last digit? Is also 5. So we're going to use the remainder here. Okay, so we're going to do what? We're going to do return x remainder by 10, and we're going to check, actually I'm going to say, put here last x is equals to x remainder of 10, and last y has value y remainder of 10. Okay, so but remember the previous problem that it's always good to use with the absolute value. So I'm going to put here abs, because for example, if we have minus 15 and 15, it's not going to return they have the same last digit because we have the minus. So since we want to avoid the problem with positive and negative values, we're going to use the absolute value. Okay, and what are we going to return? We want to see if they have the same last digit. So we're going to check if last x is equals to last y, we're going to return true, and else we're going to return false. Okay, so remember we have to call our last digit function in here, and let's see what happens. So clear, I'm going to put a breakpoint in here. and let's check. It's one more powerful tool, this module. It's confusing at the beginning, but you're going to see this will help you a lot. So let's put here 16 and 96, for example. So we're passing here. So what is the last digit of 16? How are we going to grab the last digit? So we're going to do the remainder. So the 16 divided by 10 has value 1. And what is the remainder of 16 divided by 10? It's 6, right? So we're going to print in last x the value of 6. What is the remainder of 96 divided by 10? It's also 6, right? So we have here last y equals to 6. Now we're going to check if they have the same last digit. So since last x is equal to 6 and last y is equal to 6, we're going to return true. Okay? Now if we change the problem for another number, so let's check here. I'm going to put 5 and 8, for example. So we're going to check here. What is the when we do 5 divided by 10, what is the remainder? It's 5, right? So last x is equal to 5. 8 divided by 10 has a remainder of what? It's 8, right? So we have here last y. And now we're going to check. So 5 is equal to 8. No, so we're going to return false. Okay? Now we're going to do one more two problems in here. Write a program to compute the sum of the two integers. If the sum is in the range of 10 and 20 inclusive, return 30. So here's the same thing. We have to call we're going to ask from user two integer inputs. So remember, from CS50 import get int, and we're going to ask user two integers. So x is equal to get int x, y is equals to get int y. And now we're going to write a function that it's going to do this for us. So we're going to compute the sum of two integers. If the sum is in the range of 10 and 20 inclusive, return 30. So we're going to do this. We're going to define here check nums. Okay, x and y as input. And what are we going to do? So we're going to check the sum. So we're going to see sum is equal to x plus y. Okay, and we're going to check if the sum is in the range of 10 and 20 inclusive, because if there is, we're going to return 30, else we're just going to return the sum. So that's what we're going to do. So if sum is greater or equal to 10 and sum is less than or equal to 20, we're going to return 30, else we're going to return sum. Okay, so let's see how it goes. And remember, we have to call the function in the main function. So print check nums x and y. So let's put a breakpoint in here and see what is happening. So debug 50 problems.py, and what are we going to do is what? So here I'm going to put 6 and 6. So our sum will be what? 6 plus 6 is 12. And now we're going to check. So 12 is greater than 10. Yes. And so this two condition has to be satisfied. And 12 is less than or equal to 20. Yes. So we're going to return 30. Okay. Let's do this in a different example. So if I put here 1 and 1, so we're going to check. So our sum will be 2. Okay. So now are we going to check? So 2 is less than, it's greater or equal to 10. No, so since this condition is not satisfied, the other doesn't matter because this if condition is not satisfied. So we're going to return true. Okay. Now let's write a program that accepts two integers and return true if either one is 5 or their sum or difference is 5. So it's basically the same idea here. Okay, but let's do this from scratch. So we're going to ask from the user two inputs. So remember, from CS50 import get int, and we're going to ask user for two inputs, And what are we going to do? We're going to do x is equal to get int x, y is equal to get int y, and now we're going to create this function. So I'm going to do this def, and the name of the function will be test, and I'm going to pass x and y. And when are we going to return true? When, if, or look at this condition. So if x is equal to 5, or y is equal to 5, or x plus y is equal to 5, or x minus y is equal to 5. Okay, so this is the condition. So x is equal to 5, or y is equal to 5, or x plus y is equal to 5, or since we're going to use a difference here, it's always good to use the absolute value. So x minus y is equal to 5. These 4 conditions, if one of them is true, we're going to return true, okay? And then the else, we're going to return false. So now we have to call the function, okay? So I'm going to call it in here. So print test xy, and let's put a breakpoint in here. So clear, debug 50. So I'm going to put 5 and 1. So now we're going to check. We have x equals to 5 and y equals to 1. So x is equal to 5. Yes, so this if condition is satisfied, and we return true. Why we just check 1? Because we're using OR. So one of these conditions has to be satisfied to this if condition be true. Okay? So now let's do this again. So I'm going to put 1 and 5. And now x is equal to 1 and y is equal to 5. So x is equal to 5? No, it's equal to 1. Okay? Y is equal to 5? Yes, so we're going to return true. Now let's check one more example. So if we have 3 and 2, so x is equal to 3, it's not equal to 5, so this condition is not satisfied. Y is equal to 2, so it's not equal to 5, so this condition is not satisfied. X plus y is 3 plus 2, so we have 5, so 5 is equal to 5, so this condition is satisfied. And this same thing happens with the x minus y. So let's see here. So if we put 6, 1, what do we have? So we know that 6 minus 1 it has value 5, so this if condition is satisfied, okay? And the other conditions we're just going to enter in the false. So if we do here Python problems, if I put 1 and 2, it's going to return false, okay?
So now let's start mixing things up. So now I want you to understand the idea of a remainder, because this is important to programming in general. So what can I do? So I want to check if a number is, so create a number, I want you guys to create a number, and it's gonna be an integer. So create an integer. Print if the integer is even or odd. So I'll create a variable called num. Let's do it 20. So how do we check if a number is even or odd? The way you do it is you use this symbol here called modulo. So modulo is really cool because when we do a division, for example, 20 divided by 5, my quotient, so is 4, right? And my remainder is 0. What if this number was 21? It's still 4, my quotient, but my remainder is 1. What if this is 22? The quotient is still 4, the remainder now is 2. So the module, when I do 22 module 5, it gives me this value here. It will give me 2 because it doesn't give me the quotient as a normal division does. So if I do 25 divided by 5, I'll get 4. The remainder gives me the remainder. The module gives me the remainder. If you don't remember how division works, Khan Academy is a great resource. But now let's go back. So I want to check if it's even or odd. A great way to check if it's even or odd is dividing a number by 2, because if I divide, for example, 50 divided by 2, this is 25 and this will be 0. Now if this is odd, this will be remainder 1, right? If this is 52, the quotient will be 26, because 2 times 26 is 52. The remainder is 0. Now 53. The remainder is 1. So doing any number module 2, if the remainder is 0, it's even. If the remainder is odd, it's 1. So let's do if num module 2 equals 0. I'm gonna print it's even. Else I'm gonna print it's odd. Okay, so let's see if this works. So let me go back to here and print problem 8. I need to remove those numbers. I think I didn't save. So now it should work. So it is even. Now let me change num to an odd number. Let's say if it says odd, problem, so Python 3, problem 8, it's odd. So this is good, okay? Problem 12 dot py. I want, so print, create a string, print the last letter. Okay, so what I want you to do is do that. So let's create text equals coding. To print the last letter, I'll do print text. Now to grab, let's actually start with the first letter. So first, to make it easier, first letter. To print the first letter, I use the index. The index of, we start counting programming at 0. So the index of C is 0. So to print C, the first letter, I say text 0. So let me run problem 12. Okay, it printed C. Okay, so problem 13, as you might have guessed, is to print the last letter. So I'm gonna say text equals coding, and I'm gonna print the last letter. So how do I print the last letter? I can use -1, you might see this, so this is okay. But since you're learning, you guys are learning, I want you to get the intuition. We need to get the index of the last letter. How do we do that? We get the length of the string. The string here is called text. Sometimes I see people doing str because in problems there are str. Observe that str was never created as a variable, so you can't use str. It's text. That's the name of the variable. So, but what is length? So length is a function in Python that gives you the size of the string. So what's the size? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But the index of the last letter is not 6. If we count starting at 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's actually length of text -1. So if you want to grab the last letter of a string, you use -1 to grab the last letter. And that works regardless of the size of the string, because you're grabbing the length of the text. So if I add new letters, it will still grab the last letter, because it will say, what's the length of this? This will be something -1, that gives me the last one. Why -1? Because we start counting at 0. So that gives me, this is problem. Let me run this. So that gave me A. Okay, so that was the problem. So create a string and print the last letter. Sounds good? So what about ranges of letters? So how do we print ranges of letters? That's what we're gonna see now. So problem 14. So I want you guys to print the, so create a string, print the string without the first letter. So I'm gonna create text, coding. I want you to print without the first letter. So the way this works is you need a range of values, not one letter. If you have one letter, you don't have colon, I mean. But if you want many letters, which is called substring, you use a colon. Where do we want to start? We want to start at 1 because we're cutting the first letter. What is the last one? The last one is length of text. So why length of text? This is also not inclusive. So 0, we want to go up to G. Which is the index of G? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. But G is 5. This is not inclusive. So we want to go up to 6, which is exactly length of text. So if we print this, we get print problem 14. Another way you might see, let me save, problem 14. Yeah, so I printed without the first. Another way you might see is this, but you need to understand what this means. This means start at 1 and go all the way to the end. Okay, so this is the this problem. So now let's go do problem 15. So print, create a string, print, let me see if everything's getting recorded. Yeah, print the string without the last letter. So I'm gonna create a string, text equals coding. And now I'm gonna not print the last letter. So I'm gonna say print text. I started 0, so I started C. Last time we skipped C, so we started at 1, but now I want to include C. And I don't want to include the last letter, so what can I do? Since it's not inclusive, if I put the index of G, since the slicing is not inclusive, I want to put what after the colon? The index of G. So that basically says from 0, go from 0 up to, but not including G. So what is the index of G? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could do that, but if I change to more letters, this wouldn't work because now the last letter is not 5 anymore, it's something else. So a way that you can do this in a way that works regardless of the size of the string is to do the length of that string. But if you do this, it will print the entire thing because length of text is 1 after G. It's 1 index. So what's length of text? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that will give me from 0 to 5, including 5, and that's correct. But I don't want to include G, so I do -1. Okay, so my terminal stopped working for some reason. Let me go to the next one. So Python 3. Problem 15. So it didn't print the last letter. You might see this, which is more common in Python, but I want you to understand how slicing works because you need to understand the concepts, not memorize stuff, okay? So, coding. So, now problem 16. Create a string called coding, a string with value of, I don't know, apple. Print ppl. So my string, so my text is apple. I want to print just ppl. So ppl. So how do we do that? Always understand the concept. So what is the width range? So we're grabbing from where? From text. So we need to put text here. Where are we grabbing one letter or multiple letters? Multiple letters. So we have a colon. If it's just one letter, no colon. Multiple letters, colon. I want now to print ppl. So what is the first letter is P. How do we grab P? We start, the index of P is 1. So we do P, the index of P is 1, so we start at 1 and we go up to L. But remember, the second value here is not inclusive, so we need to go 1 past L. So the index of 1 past L, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. What is 4? It's length of text. So let's actually put 4 here, just so you guys understand. So 0, we start at 1, we go up to 4 not inclusive. What does not inclusive means? It means it's 1, 2, 3, not 4. If this was 1, 5, this would go, or 1, 6, this would go 1, 2, 3. It would grab letters at spots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but not 6. So this is what we want here, because we want letters 1, P, 2, P, 3, L, but not 4. So now let's print this, and so we want problem 16, and we printed PPL, okay?
So now let's do problem 16. Create a string with the value apple, banana, split the string into two variables, fruits, and print them. So what will be our goal here? We're gonna create a variable call that will store apple, banana. All right, so I'm gonna create a variable here, var, for example, and I will start the string apple, banana, separated with a white space. Split this string into two variables, fruits, and print them. So here we want to split the variable apple, banana into apple and another variable with the word banana. So how can we do this? Here we give here the link for the split method, and basically the split method splits a string into a list. Okay, and we're gonna understand how it works. So let's see this animation. The split method splits a string into a list. You can specify the separator, and the default separator is any white space. Let's suppose we want to split our string txt, which holds the value hi everyone, into two. We can use the notation of creating two variables in the same line by doing x, y. Then we assign x and y to the result of the split method, so we do x, y equals to txt.split parentheses. In this case, the split method will separate the string in where there is white space. In the end, x will hold the value hi and y will hold the value everyone. Let's see another case. Let's suppose our txt variable holds the value apple, banana. In this case, we use the split method again here, but instead of doing txt.split, we do txt.split, and inside the parentheses we're gonna use quotation mark comma. So in this case, we want to separate our string by comma. This means that we're going to split this string every time we have a comma. In the end, x will hold the value apple and y will hold the value banana. So now that we saw how it works, let's start applying here, okay? So like we saw, the split method will return as a list where we're gonna split in the part that we want. In this case, we want to split in the white space. So the white space is the default case of the split method, okay? So I'm gonna create a variable called fruits, for example, and I'm gonna say var, that is the string that we're storing, the message, and I'm gonna use the method split, and then I'm gonna print fruits, okay? So far we didn't work with lists, but we're gonna see in the future, right, where we're gonna work better with lists. But let's see what fruits is, okay? So if I run and debug in here, oops, let me change the breakpoint, and I'm gonna put in here. If I run and debug again, we're gonna see the following. We have our variable var here, okay, that it holds the value apple space banana. And once we use this split method, let's see what happens in fruits. Basically, the split methods will divide our fruits into two, okay? For example, like we can see in here, right now we have a list, and every element of this list has apple and banana, so we are able to split the variable into two. Okay, and if we print fruits, we're gonna have these two variables. But in this case, they are asking us to split the string into two variables, right? So what we can do is we're gonna print var.split, okay? And if we run in here, ebook, let me enter in the terminal. And if we run python problems.py, here we're gonna see apple and banana, what we just saw, okay? So this is exactly what we need. We can do this both ways, or creating a variable to store whatever the split method returns, or put everything in the print, okay? Now let's go to the next problem. So create a string with the value apple, banana, split this string into two variables, fruits, and print them. So in this case it will be pretty similar, but instead of a white space in here we have a comma, and okay, and we're gonna use the split method again. So how can we do this? The default case of the split method is splitting in the white space, but we can tell in which part we want to split our string. So in here we can say that we want to split our string in the comma part. Okay, so let's use the debugger again. So once it runs here, once it runs in here, let's see what happens. So basically we have our variable var that stores the value apple, banana, and once we run the split method, we're gonna split our variable in apple and banana because we want to split in the comma, okay? And like we can see in here, and exactly like we saw previously, we have here apple and we have here banana, okay? So we're doing what the split method tells us to do. Now let's see the next problem. So ask the user for a word. If the word contains the letter A, print there is letter A, otherwise print there is no letter A. So in this case we're gonna use the in operator. So basically the in operator works with iterable types such as lists or strings in Python. It is used to check if an element is found in the variable. The in operator returns true if an element is found, it returns false if not. So basically the in operator will tell us if whatever we're looking for exists in what we want to check. For example, in this case we want to check if the letter A exists in the word, and it's going to return us true if it exists and false if does not exist, okay? Let's see this animation about the in operator. The in and not in are membership operators. They can take in two arguments and evaluate if one is a member of the other. All right, so let's understand in an example. If we want to check if this phrase, my name is Giovanna, contains the word Giovanna, we can do if Giovanna in my name is Giovanna, and since this string contains Giovanna, we're going to return true. If we want to check if the same phrase contains the name Peter, we can do if Peter in my name is Giovanna, and since this string does not contain Peter, we're going to return false. So like we saw in the animation, we can check if something exists or not using the in operator, and this will be exactly what we're gonna do, okay? So first we're gonna ask the user for a word, so I'm gonna create a variable word, and I'm gonna ask the user for a word, okay? And now we're gonna check if the letter A exists in this word, okay? So we're gonna do if A in word, so this is exactly what we say. If A exists in the variable word, we're gonna print there is letter A, and otherwise, so else, we're gonna print there is not letter A, okay? And let's check what happens. I'm gonna put a breakpoint on line 2. So let's run and debug. In here, we're gonna ask the user for a word. So I'm gonna put, for example, apple. Okay, so we're gonna check if A exists in apple. We have the letter A in apple is the first letter, so this condition is true, and we're gonna enter in this if statement and print there is letter A. Okay, let's run again. What if we wanna check with something else? Let me think about a word. For example, if I put here pen, all right? And we're gonna check if A exists in pen. In this case, the letter A does not exist in pen. So we're going to the else statement and we're gonna print there is not letter A. Okay? Now let's see the next one. Ask the user for a word. If the word contains the letter A, it can be in lower or uppercase. Print there is letter A, otherwise there is not a letter A. So here it will be pretty similar, but we have to check if there is letter A for both cases, or uppercase or lowercase. So how can we do this? We can put everything in lowercase or everything in uppercase and do the checking. So for example, if I receive the word apple all upper and I convert this to lowercase, we can check if the A in lowercase exists in there. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna use the lower method, okay, and we're gonna check if this works. So let's run and debug. The other parts of the code will be exactly the same. So for example, if I put in here apple all capital, here the word has the value apple all capital, but we're checking if the A in lowercase exists in apple in lowercase, because we're converting word in lowercase. So we have the letter A in lowercase in apple in lowercase. So this if condition will be true, and we're gonna print there is letter A. Okay, what if we want to try again with something different, with a word that has no letter A inside? And here the idea will be pretty much the same like we saw before. For example, if I put here pen in uppercase, there is no letter A in lowercase in pen when we convert to lowercase, so we're going to the else and we're going to print there is no letter A. Okay, now the last question. Ask the user for a message. If the message contains the word hello, it can be in lower or uppercase. Print hello you, otherwise no hello. So here it will be exactly the same, okay, but instead of asking for a word, we're gonna ask for a message, and instead of checking for the letter A, we're gonna check for the word hello. Okay, and again we need to be aware with the uppercase and lowercase. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna do some changes. I'm gonna create a variable message and I'm gonna ask the user for a message. Okay, this is the first change. Then we want to check if hello exists in our message, and we need to convert this in lowercase. If the word hello exists in message in lowercase, we're gonna say hello you, and otherwise we're gonna say no hello. Okay, this is exactly the same what we just did. So if we run and debug again, let's see what happens. And if I put, for example, hello there with capital H, we're going to store this in our variable message hello there, and we're gonna check. The word hello in lowercase exists in our message all in lowercase, so the word hello exists in hello there. Yes, so we're gonna enter in this if condition and print hello you. Okay, let's test with something different. For example, if I put in here hi there instead of hello. So if I put in here hi there, our message variable will store the value hi there, and we're gonna check if the word hello in lowercase exists in hi there in lowercase. In this case, we don't have the word hello in our message, so we're going to the else and we're gonna print no hello. Okay, so this is it for these problems. Right now you're more than prepared to do the problem set 1, okay? And if you have any questions, send here in the comment. If you would like to have full support from our programming experts, check the description below. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.